Hi, everybody. My name is Colin DeCheshin, and today we're going to answer another frequently asked question on our product, Heads Up Seed Treatment. So today's question comes to us from one of our customers in the Midwestern United States, and the question is, I never had white mold show up last year in my soybeans. Is it still necessary to use Heads Up this coming season? As a reminder, all seed treatments are not curative, but are a great way to be proactive and set yourself up with a level of assurance that you have some protection against various diseases throughout the growing season. Heads Up is an EPA registered product to help with the suppression of white mold, STS, rhizoctonia, and other various fungal and bacterial diseases. That said, let's dive into this grower's question on why it's always a good idea to add Heads Up to your seed treatment package. So when we consider white mold in soybeans, we have to consider your specific field and the probability of that infection reoccurring. White mold first develops in the lower canopy of the plant, and what it looks like is exactly as it sounds, a white mold or a fuzzy mycelium, the hyphae, growing on the stalk of the plant. White mold is also known as sclerotia stem rot or stalk rot, and is caused by a fungal pathogen called Sclerotinia sclerotiorum. The way the life cycle of white mold works is that after the plant is infected at an open wound just past flowering with ascospores or spores, the plant becomes infected, the white cottony hyphae starts to grow on the stalk of the plant, and then this resting structure called sclerotia is actually what you find inside the inner workings of the stalk. And that's what we're seeing on the left side of the screen. So these black, hard bodies that we're seeing that kind of look like mouse turds or rat turds is actually the resting structure of the disease. The problem with white mold is it's a very emotional disease to the grower, and it's very devastating. It can really reduce yields from a high yielding, wonderful looking crop down to a very poor yielding crop in a matter of weeks. These sclerotia are, as I mentioned, overwintering survival structures of the disease. And when your plants die off from white mold, these sclerotia or resting structures fall back into the soil and can overwinter for multiple seasons. So oftentimes, if you're on a 2-year rotation, corn, soybean, you only have 2 seasons in between, and that's not a long enough period and duration to fully rid your soils of this terrible inoculum. So to answer the question for the grower, do I need to use Heads Up every year even though I haven't seen white mold recently? The answer is you should be using Heads Up every year if you have a field history of white mold and you've seen it in your fields in the last 7 to 10 years. Now, I'd like to remind the grower how devastating white mold can be. So here's a good example, and we often get calls from new customers about this, and they tell us, I've had a wonderful looking crop coming along. We were expecting to harvest somewhere between 70 to 80 bushel an acre beans. Then the early part of August came around, the weather got humid, we've been getting a lot of rainfall, and these high yielding beans just completely collapsed on us, and we had a total wreck out there. We were only able to harvest 5 to 10 bushels. That's how significant white mold can be. It can take your yield all the way down from 70 to 80 bushel an acre and basically wipe it right out. Now, if you farm in the Midwest, you likely know all about white mold, and it's a part of your rotation because it's prone to the northern United States. Or in the eastern part of the US, along the Great Lakes, they also deal with a significant amount of white mold with the humidity and what's called the lake effect coming off the Great Lake region. So, as a final thought, do I need to use Heads Up every year, even though I haven't seen white mold recently? I'd tell growers always to one, consider their field history. When is the last time you've seen the disease? Two, consider the weather patterns. Has it been a particularly wet cycle lately? Or what has conditions been like in the past few years? Have you been more on the drought side of things? Or what is the weather exactly doing in your area? And that is difficult and hard to predict. And secondly, Heads Up is always a great starting point because it's a very economical product, but it requires no extra work to you on the farm. So for a few dollars an acre, your local seed dealer, co-op, or ag retailer can add Heads Up in with your fungicide insecticide seed treatment. It's no big deal, and you get that added level of protection from the get-go. Lastly, along with Heads Up, there are several other management practices that one can follow to manage white mold. However, I'd like to remind everyone that there are no rescue treatments when it comes to this disease. And when you're seeing white mold late season in the canopy, there is nothing you can do to stop it. So always be proactive, consider a full season approach. Heads Up is not a curative product, but it will help to suppress and reduce the incidence, severity, and maintain the yield that you were expecting in the crop. And follow a proper integrated pest management protocol. That said, for more tips on managing white mold, best practices, and to learn more about Heads Up seed treatment, visit us at headsupst.com.